It's time for Reason.
But if they disagree with you, then you're not actually promoting freedom of speech, you're actually promoting hate speech. Because in today's times, anything that offends you, that makes you feel uncomfortable, is no longer a freedom of speech, but is now hate speech. If you say, I love Donald Trump, that is now considered fascist hate speech because you're probably a white supremacist and you don't have any place in society.
This is the Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Then I get on my knees and pray. We don't get fooled again. Don't get fooled again.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Welcome into the Voice of Reason, broadcasting live across the entire Mid-America region, the 5-state area, baby, making it happen, advancing conservatism, fighting the good fight on a daily basis. Welcome into the Voice of Reason, hailing out of Wichita, Kansas, here on the Big Talker KQAM, simulcasting on KGPT TV, and broadcasting across the entire Mid-America network. Great to have you along today. It is the day we've been looking forward to. It is a Friday. As usual, whatever's on your mind, it's time to speak up. It's time to talk about it. Anything we may have talked about, not talked about, revisit it if you want to. It's a free-for-all Friday right here on The Voice of Reason. Let's make it happen. All right. 316-721-8255, 316-721-TALK. If you want to join into the program, you're more than welcome to do so. Boy, I tell you what, we got a heck and a half of a show coming up for you today. It's going to be a fun one, as there is a lot to discuss, there's a lot to digest, there's a lot to break down for you, and of course a lot of the biggest news that came out was the omnibus bill that was voted in late last night for the federal government, so they did not have the shutdown. Now, as you and I know, as conservative Republicans, we really don't care about the shutdown because, oh heaven forbid, the government actually shut down like it is every weekend and every evening. Oh well, oh darn. However, it did pass, and a lot of individuals very upset about this. We will break down the bill. Now, there are some bad things, obviously, in it. I would have liked to have seen it not pass, but it did pass. This is not the point where we draw the line and say we're done. We throw our hands up in the air and say we give up on our elected officials. This is not the point. We're close to that, but it's not the point. And we'll touch on that a little bit throughout the show today. So stay tuned in for that. I do want to cover that. I will say, though, to start off the day, it is, you know what, it's a Friday. I want to start it off on a positive note. Let's just say that we had hashtag Dad of the Year, hashtag Mom of the Year last night. That's what I'm saying. We had here in the Wichita area, Disney on Ice was at Intrust Bank Arena, and ended up going to that for our 3-year-old daughter. And let me just say that right there just made it all worth it. That right there just made your night. See the response from her. Now, she dressed up as Anna, from Princess Anna from Frozen, and she ended up going to this event, and it actually, I tell you what, Disney, they don't hold anything back when it comes to production quality. It was actually a really good show. And listen to this, the wannabe macho dad saying that Disney on Ice was actually a really good show. And it was. They had some fantastic dancers and the ice skaters, and they had the performance was fantastic. They had all the designs. It was really cool to watch. I've never been to a Disney on Ice or any on ice performance. I've never been that much into ice skating. Never really cared for that kind of stuff at all. Whatever. But it was actually a really good performance. And let me just say, one thing I'll never forget, and just to see the response of her, when the very first princess came out, it was Belle from Beauty and the Beast. And Belle comes out of the room and out of the door, and she starts skating on the ice, and she saw the very first princess. It was, you remember as a kid, the emotion overload that you have where you really don't know how to respond, and some people still do that as an adult. Her eyes got 3 times the size they usually did. She had to cover her mouth because it was just wide open, and the tears that started swelling up in her eyes. Like, she was that excited. And just to watch that, right there, baby, that's what it's all about, and that just made the night. So it was a fantastic night when it came to Disney on Ice here. It was a lot of fun, and that just made us the best parents in the entire world for, a couple of days while she ends up talking about it. So it was a lot of fun. It was a late night. It was a late night for sure, and especially for her. I tell you what, after the emotion of being so excited for the last 3 hours of the show, she was the opposite of happiness when she ended up trying to come home and go to bed and trying to get ready for bed. She was cranky baby number 1. But nonetheless, it was totally worth it and a lot of fun. So that was that night. I was following a lot of the omnibus bill omnibus bill spending votes as they were happening, and a lot of social media that was going on with people very angry, people very frustrated. And let me tell you something. I understand, but yet at the same time, it was known. We knew this was going to happen. And we as conservatives need to be very careful when it comes to immediate emotional responses. Look, I'm one that when something happens, good or bad, I very, very rarely have an emotional immediate response. I do not like that. I do not like to be reactionary in that sense. I'm one that overanalyzes everything, for one. Sometimes that's good, sometimes that's not so good. But I overanalyze everything. So before I respond, I sit back, I think about it, I analyze it, and then we have a non-emotional reaction to the actual situation. And I understand that we're very frustrated. Absolutely. I'm very frustrated myself. The fact that it's a 2,200-page bill, that they literally had 1,000 minutes to read a 2,200-page bill, 2,200 pages in 1,000 minutes to vote on. The fact that we had to cram it in the 11th hour again, like usual. The fact that it went $1.3 trillion in spending for the rest of the year. It's very frustrating. Totally understand. That's not what we're supposed to be when we have a Republican majority in the House, when we have a Republican majority in the Senate, and we have a Republican president. This is not the way it's supposed to be. However, did you really, honestly, truly think that it would have been anything different? Did you really think that it would have been anything different than the fact that we've done this in this process since 1997? The same process, the not doing the appropriations, the waiting to the last minute to ram through a bill, to throw in as much porculus as you possibly can, to vote on it last minute or to threaten a shutdown, and then to go to the typical party lines with the Democrats saying that we can't shut down any social services for individuals and the Republicans saying that we need to fund the military. That's the arguments that we heard last night. Did you really expect anything different? Is there anything out of the ordinary in this? Now, me being the eternal optimist and seeing the light at the end of the tunnel and always seeing the positive side of these things, here's my response to this. Your elected officials, slap them on the wrist. You know what? It was a bad bill. There was a lot more money in there than we needed to. We spent, now look, I mean, we did the continuing resolutions and the omnibus bills just a few months ago to continue spending for about a month at a time, and we don't want to do that anymore. So at least this gets us through the end of the year, and we don't have to worry about it again for another year. The good news is that now that we have this out of our way, we do not have to fret about a government shutdown, is that we get to focus on the appropriations process, the first time to really focus on a legitimate appropriations process since 1997. If you've noticed the spending habits in the government, we've increased spending over and over and over and over and over again. We've had massive stimulus packages, massive spending cap increases, massive debt ceiling increases, and then every time we do that, then we continue to just spend it rather than actually be responsible. That's happened since 1997 under Republicans and Democrats alike. George W. Bush was doing it. Barack Obama took his philosophy and quadrupled it. We've been in this mess for a long time. This is nothing new. Now we have a legitimate chance. And if you're on the fence and you're frustrated and you're angry and you want to primary all of these candidates out, especially here in the state of Kansas, where all 4 of our House members voted for this bill. If you really want to be on that line and be like, I'm ready to vote you out because I'm done, I'm frustrated, and I'm exhausted, and I'm angry, the point that you draw the line is in the appropriations process. The appropriations process, when we start looking at not the entire bill as one lump sum, we cram everything into it that we want to, but when we look at the appropriations and say, here's a military bill, here's a social programs bill, here is a this bill, here's a that bill, and we start looking at it and we break it down and we cut out porculus and we cut out the special interests and we cut out a lot of the spending and we work towards beginning to decrease. And if they don't utilize that opportunity and they don't make that happen this summer, as we talked with Congressman Ron Estes just 2 days ago about this, and he warned us about it, and I'll play the clips for you again on that. He warned us this was going to happen, and he said he didn't like it. He ended up voting for it because it had some positives and some negatives to it, and we'll get to that in a little bit. But if he doesn't fight for the appropriations process to really start making a difference this summer, that's when you draw the line. That's when you say, I've had enough. This one, it's a slap on the wrist because it was already done. It was already going to happen. There was nothing we could have done about it, and the Republicans were not going to be able to shut this one down and stop it. It wasn't going to happen. It was feasibly impossible. I would have loved to have seen it, but we got to live in the realistic terms here. We cannot be the emotional reactionaries and say, I'm done, I'm over. No, this was going to happen. We knew it was going to happen, and there's nothing that we could have done to be able to stop this one. Some conservatives did vote against it, yes, and I applaud them for that. Would I have loved to have seen our elected officials here in Kansas vote against it? Sure, absolutely. But it wouldn't have made a difference. It wouldn't have made a difference. And now we get to focus on what really matters, is the appropriations bill. There's also some parts of it, and we got some calls on the line I do want to get to you here in a second. We got a hard time break in about 45 seconds, so I'll get to you as soon as we come back from the break. There are some other parts of the bill as well that actually are completely wrong and false. Many conservatives on social media last night concerned about the Second Amendment in this bill. Don't worry about that. The NRA has come out and made a statement on that. We'll cover that in a second as well. There's also a comment in there when it regards Planned Parenthood and the continuing funding for Planned Parenthood. I will respond to that as well. Where, we wouldn't have liked to seen that in there, but this is actually somewhat good news because there are some parts in it that allows us an opportunity to begin defunding it, and even the state of Kansas, where our real focus is, it's actually going to make real change, actually responded to it yesterday as well. So we'll cover all of that. Yes, it's not the best bill in the world, but no, we do not just wrap up and just throw our hands in the air and throw our towels in. There's still opportunity. There's still a lot of fight to happen. Stay tuned. We'll talk about that when we come back. Welcome back into the Voice of Reason, 23 minutes past the hour. Appreciate you hanging out with us today. It is a Friday, the Free-for-All Friday. It's a frustrated Friday for many individuals. Let's work through some of this, shall we? 316-721-8255. John on Facebook, voting for something you haven't read can't be business as usual anymore. Anyone who voted for it should be voted out. I understand, you're right. We should not be voting for something we have not read. That's what we're working to change. That's what we're working to change here. Why we waited to the last day? Of course, it's typical government. It's typical federal government. There's nothing new about it. It's been happening for a while now. The fact is we're working to change that. Now we have an 11 different appropriation bills that we can start focusing on come this summer and get voted on before the election. And that's the point. That's the point. They're going to be doing it in June, July, and August this year, which means depending on how much progress they get done, how beneficial these appropriations bills actually are this summer, that's, I say, when you get to make your decision on whether you're going to support some of these individuals or not to be reelected into office, because that's the opportunity we have. This one was kind of the water under the bridge. It's frustrating, yes. It's angering, yes. It's ridiculous and absurd, absolutely. But this one needs to be more the slap on the wrist than the needle that broke the haystack kind of thing, or the hay that broke the camel's back, or the needle, whatever. You know the analogy, what I'm talking about. 316-721-8255. I do want to get to some of the details on all of this bill in just a little bit, but let's go ahead and take some phone calls. You've been very patiently waiting since the beginning of the show here. Let's go to line number one. Good morning. What's your name?
This is Jim.
Jim, good morning, sir. How are you?
I'm a little bit sad, and I'll tell you about that later. The problem we have, every 2 years we have an election.
Sure.
1/3 of the Senate gets elected, and these stupid American voters from coast to coast will say, well, we elected the Republicans to fix the government. And if the Republicans don't get it all fixed perfectly, they say, well, we're going to vote for the Democrats now. And so you watch, the predictions are that the Democrats will pick up a few more senators in the Senate, and that'll move the Republicans.
And then we'll never be able to get anything done.
Well, we can't do it now. Schumer has total control of the Senate. We may have the guy sitting in the head chair setting the agenda, but Schumer can block everything because they require 60 votes, and the Republicans only have 51.
Exactly. I mean, right now we are still struggling. Look, the vote last night in the House was 256 to 167. I heard somewhere that it was only a four vote difference, and that our four Kansas reps could have done something about it. That's not the case. 256 to 167, and in the Senate it passed with somewhat of it was like 65 votes for to be able to get it through. So we still have some work to do. But you're right, we need more Republicans in there,
and we have to have a real working majority, not just a. It's like having somebody get a new credit card in the mail, and it's got zero balance on it, and you think you're rich, but you can go out and max out that credit card in about an hour, and you're broke again.
Right. And that's the thing. I mean, and we listened to Dave Ramsey, we listened to all these. Jim, I appreciate it. I want to sneak in another call before the bottom of the hour, but you're absolutely right. I mean, with the spending habits that they've been doing, do you really expect anything different? You cap out the credit card that you always have. You're struggling to pay the payments. They increase your limit on that. Do you really think that they're going to say, you know what, I'm not going to spend it? We need to fix that. We need to sit down and look. The appropriations process that we're going to come up on this summer is going to be that. It's going to be really the Dave Ramsey process, sitting down and saying, here's the structured budget of exactly what we're going to spend and knowing exactly where every penny's going to go. We're on the road to make that better. Is this a frustrating vote? Absolutely it is. But this cannot be the end-all, be-all for many individuals when it comes to supporting or not supporting some of our elected officials. It's frustrating, but we have some better things on the horizon that we need to focus our attention on. We cannot drain all of our political mojo on this one. We need to be focused on the political mojo when it comes to this summer and the appropriations process. That's the point I'm trying to get at here when it comes to this bill. I understand I would have loved to have seen a vote no, but I understand just to get through this one and focus on the priorities here. Let's sneak in another phone call, shall we? Good morning. What's your name?
This is Pete.
Hey, good morning, Pete. How are you?
I'm good. Good Friday to you.
Happy Friday.
All right. I've got to disagree with your optimism on this omnibus bill.
Okay.
Look, they've kicked the can down the road to October, to just before the elections. And I'm telling you, the resentment on this omnibus bill, the House did its job. It passed individual appropriations bills. The Senate dropped the ball. It's Mitch McConnell who's the problem.
Sure.
And the Democrats have done a masterful job, once again, of boxing the Republicans in. Now, Trump, I even though he is going to sign it, I think he ought to veto the doggone thing. You keep talking about, now we have a chance to do the appropriations process. Hogwash. The same situation. The House already did appropriations bills. The Senate, because of their dysfunction under McConnell, dropped the ball, and now we have another omnibus bill. What's going to change over the summer?
Well,
absolutely zero.
Here's going to be the difference, Pete. The last time when they did the appropriations, and I get it, I understand it, they only did about a half an appropriations bill. They tried it, but it was not really what the appropriations actually look like, which is why we ran out of money. We needed to do 2 different continuing resolutions bills, 2 other omnibus bills since the beginning of the year, and now we have one going to the end of the year. So it was only kind of a half-ass kind of thing. Now this one's going to be a full-on review, reform of the appropriations process. And, Pete, I got to take a break. I appreciate it, which allows us to do what we need to. And, again, I know that we don't like this, and I don't like it either. It's not time to throw in the towel yet. We need more conservatives. We need more Republicans to be in the government to get rid of someone like Mitch McConnell. Back after this. Stay here.
Here's your latest forecast on the Big Talker KQAM. For this morning, mostly cloudy, a high near 76, winds over 30 miles an hour. Tonight, partly cloudy and 52, winds over 25 miles an hour. For tomorrow, sunny and 66, winds as high as 25 miles an hour, partly cloudy and 41 tomorrow night. I'm Amp Harrell, and that's your latest forecast on Wichita's big station, the Big Talker, AM 1480 and 102.5 FM KQAM.
It's time for Reason
If this is a victory for Democrats thinking they have the momentum again, then let them have it, because that's as far as they're going to go. In a state that was already won by Democrats, already predominantly blue, in a state where the Republican did not want to embrace current Republican trends. If you're not going to do that, then you're not going to win. End of story. It's very simple.
This is the Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
I understand that I am classified sometimes as the eternal optimist, and I always look for the bright side. I always look for the next fight, because if the fight's already done and over, there's no reason to sit there and lick our wounds and continue to be upset about it, as opposed to looking towards the next argument and the next fight. And right now, we are in a great position to be able to do something drastic. Yes, we funded things that really didn't need to be funded over the end of the year here for the next few months for the rest of this fiscal year. We have some appropriations opportunities. That's where I would draw the line personally, and I'd say that if they don't actually start getting their stuff into gear here before this. I mean, Chuck Schumer loved this bill, obviously, and as Pete rightly pointed out in the last segment, saying, hey, you know what, we don't need to be doing that, and Chuck Schumer's got complete control. That's what we have to stop. And by overhauling the way the conservatives love to do on the whim many times, and saying that we want to overhaul and get somebody new in there, that only hurts our cause, doesn't help it right now. We need to get more Republicans. We need to unite as a Republican Party. I got a lot more coming up on this bill, the details of the bill in regards to Planned Parenthood, in regards to the Second Amendment, and a lot of things are floating out there. We'll correct those in just a little bit. I do want to do that. But first, yesterday, we do want to play this interview for our Western affiliates out in the western part of the state. Yesterday, as you know, or a couple of days ago, Wednesday, was the official announcement with the gubernatorial candidate Chris Kobach, Secretary of State, with his running mate Wink Hartman. They both jumped onto the program with us yesterday, and I do want to play that interview for us and to get your thoughts and calls on this as well. This is Secretary of State Chris Kobach along with Wink Hartman with their talk yesterday here on The Voice of Reason, talking about their run for the governorship and the lieutenant governorship. On the phone with us right now is Secretary of State Chris Kobach with us. Chris, how are you this morning?
Doing great, Andy. How you doing?
Oh, we're living the dream, my friend. Congratulations on the announcement. That's really big news. I think it's a fantastic pick, and I'm really excited to see what your campaign's going to look like here for the next few months.
Oh, me too. It's been a lot of fun preparing for this announcement. One of the most important decisions any governor makes is who the number two person in the administration is going to be, because that person may have to take the reins someday, and that person's going to be at the center of the decision making. And Wink Hartman's got all the right qualities to be a great lieutenant governor. And of course, I don't know how many of your listeners have heard, but I'm going to do something really innovative with him, and that is make him the COO of the state. He's going to look at every agency and see if he can find some ways to cut waste and improve the efficiency of government from a business leader's point of view. And as everybody knows from the Wichita area, he's been a very prominent business figure in the area. And in fact, we're eating breakfast at one of his businesses right now, the Jimmy's Egg on 7th.
With Jimmy's Egg, that's right. I mean, that's the best way to start off the day, and especially after a heck of a day yesterday. I mean, you guys went through, 5 or 6 different locations around the state yesterday just for the announcement.
Yeah, that's right. And we're continuing the tour today. We're heading west from Wichita, and we'll end the day out in Garden City.
Very good, very good. Talk about, as you mentioned, I mean, Wink Hartman going to be the COO, CEO, kind of looking at some of these different agencies, and that's really what you've been campaigning on, is talking about not only cleaning up and draining, quote-unquote, the swamp, but talking about cleaning up some of the agencies and working to downsize the agencies a little bit, and kind of with the partnership between you two, I mean, it's a real possibility that we could start seeing maybe we could spend less money in the government.
Yeah, Andy, I've always said all along, Kansas doesn't have a revenue problem. We've got a spending problem. And, I'm a lifelong conservative and someone who'd always read that, government can't be cut. It's impossible. And then when I became Secretary of State 8 years ago now, I said, hey, I control this agency. I'm going to see if I can shrink this thing down. And we took our budget from $7 million a year. Now it's only $4.6 million a year. And, that's a huge cut. And so my thinking is, well, if I could do that with my agency, I want to do that across the entirety of Kansas government. But, I need someone to help me do it, who can help me identify the cuts. We had to look hard, and we had to find the way to find efficiencies in my agency. But with Wink at my side, he'll take that business perspective and look for waste in every agency. So I'm very optimistic. We can actually shrink government spending, which is something that hasn't happened very much in any state in America, but we're going to do it in Kansas.
Sure. During the campaign when Wink was running for governor, he had the bus with the hashtag #FedUp. Now that you guys are campaigning together, I did see the brand new bus, and if anybody hasn't seen it, I recommend that they do. And right on there, what I got to give you credit for, and I love and I respect very much, is the boldness of it, and just saying that it's not, the general terms what we usually hear in a campaign, but it's the solid. This is the conservative solution, and this is what we're going to campaign on, and this is what we're going to do when we get in office. And it's a very bold statement, so I give you guys credit for that.
Well, thanks. We have very specific ideas. I'm looking at the side of our bus right now, and it says "Stop Sanctuary Cities." Cut taxes and wasteful spending. These are very specific problems. I've been on your show before talking about immigration issues, and there are still sanctuary counties in Kansas, and I've been trying for years to get legislation passed to starve those counties of state funds. But we'll get that passed when I'm in the governor's office, no question about it. But these are very specific solutions to very real problems that we have in Kansas. Mm-hmm. So, hopefully people will see the bus and say, hey, I actually like those ideas.
Sure, absolutely. When you made the announcement yesterday, one of the other pieces of news that you did come out with was the latest poll when it comes to the primary races, and you're up right now 31%. Jeff Collier coming in second with 18, Jim Barnett at 10, Ken Seltzer at 4, and then undecided at 36%. Already some big news with you gaining some traction on that. How much of the polls do you think is going to be affected with Wink Hartman jumping on board officially now?
I think now that people know that Wink is on the team, the poll number should go up even higher because he had a substantial following among people who were being polled prior to him dropping out of the governor's contest. So I think a lot of those Hartman supporters will be coming on board. And I've talked to some of the folks who were supporters of Wink, and his message, that's part of the reason why we mesh so well together. He was speaking about the same conservative message I am. And so I think some conservatives were looking at Kobach, looking at Hartman, weren't quite sure which one to go with. Now those people can all come home to the conservative ticket in this race. And it'll give voters a real choice. I mean, if they want status quo and they think don't rock the boat, don't change too much in Topeka, then they definitely should not vote for me. But if they want someone who's going to shake things up, going to take a serious knife to the spending in Topeka, then they should look at the Kobach-Hartman ticket because we will be the conservative option.
Sure. Last couple questions before we let you go. I know you guys are really busy, but as you mentioned, today you're already going to be traveling out to Garden City and moving across the state over the next few months. Along with the trial that you're involved in right now with the ACLU and those guys trying to block things, along with the campaign, it's going to be busy for you for the next couple of months, but where can people kind of expect you to be, and how can people get involved?
Well, they can get involved by going to our website, chriskobach.com, and once you sign up there, you'll start getting updates on where the campaign, where I'll be speaking, where Wink will be speaking. That's the easiest way to keep track of things. So I'd recommend people do that. If they want to catch us on the tour, we'll be, like I said, we'll be heading to Hutch in a little while here. Then we'll be moving on to Great Bend, then Dodge City, then Garden. We'll be going all over the state for the next 3 days. But it's exciting. Everywhere I've been going, there's been a really good reception, and I think, contrary to the mainstream media's drivel that Kansans are no longer conservative, Kansans now like higher taxes, and you really hear that, especially in Topeka, that hey, everybody's sick of those tax cuts we had a few years back. That is not true. Kansans want government to shrink. Kansans want to keep more of their own hard-earned money, and you've got to take a strong stand, and I think it's resonating with people. They're saying, yeah, I like the fact you're going to try to shrink government. So I think it's going to continue to be a well-received message.
Well, has that been kind of the main focus of when you meet people, what they've been talking about? Has it been the tax issue? Now we're talking about potentially doubling property tax rates in the state to be able to fund the educational thing after the research study that came out.
Yeah.
The sales tax for online sales. Has that been the focus of people when they meet you on the campaign trail to say, this is what's really troubling me, can you fix this?
When people come up to me and they have met me or they're meeting me for the first time, usually it's either that issue or they're familiar with my work on trying to stop illegal immigration and they'll have some thought on that, or it's the issue of stopping voter fraud, which of course you and I have talked about too, and the trial against the ACLU has been in the news a lot. So, and on that issue, boy, I tell you, Kansans are so fully behind the law that we got passed to require proof of citizenship, and in fact, a lot of the evidence of aliens voting comes from right here in Sedgwick County. So many documented cases of aliens registering and voting and canceling out the votes of U.S. citizens. I think that is outrageous. Mm-hmm. And I can't believe it when the mainstream media says, oh, nothing to see here, move along.
Well, that's very true. Secretary of State Chris Kobach, congratulations on the announcement. That's big news. I'm sure we'll get you on the show here real soon again, but good luck to you guys on the campaign trail for the next few days. And I understand that Wink Hartman's actually right next to you there as well. Can we chat with him?
Yeah, here's Wink.
Hey, fantastic. Wink Hartman being the official announcement with the lieutenant governorship position for Chris Kobach, as Wink Hartman on the line with us as well. Are you there, sir?
I'm here, Andy. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing great. It's great to talk to you again. Wayne, congratulations on the official announcement.
Well, thank you very much. I'm very excited to join the team with Chris. I think it's with the pair of us, we'll be able to do a really good job for the people.
Talk about your vision, and I mean, I know that we saw some similarities, and people were talking, and the buzz started right after the first Republican debate of saying, "Hey, you guys partnered up really well. You were feeding off of each other back and forth a little bit." This has been an opportunity that kind of rose up after that. But what's been your thought process throughout this entire thing from the debate, saying, "Hey, I really need to partner up with Chris"?
Well, it became pretty obvious, Andy, that during the debate, Chris was giving his conservative answers, and I was trying to do the best I could for the conservative answer. And all of a sudden, it was so obvious that it was like I wrote his script or he wrote mine, and it was really kind of a back and forth type of thing. So we kind of, I guess the old eye contact and a smile and a handshake, and it went from there. We started to have a cup of coffee here and there, and doing our thing, and pretty soon it kind of decided that why would we Republicans that have the conservative message, why would we battle it out and end up maybe handing the governorship to somebody from another ticket? Mm-hmm. So we decided to join forces, and I just am ecstatic. We have a great team. We are going to be out amongst the people of Kansas, as you know, again today, tomorrow, and Saturday. So anyway, we're out there, and we're going to be shaking hands and finding out exactly what the people want.
Well, you're absolutely right. I heard from a lot of listeners who were supporters of either you or Chris saying, I'm really torn because those are the conservative options in their opinion, and we didn't know which way to go. So I think that may unite a lot of individuals on that. Chris had mentioned that not only are you going to be the running mate, which is extremely important as a lieutenant governor if you guys get in there, but on the other hand, he said, you're going to play such a vital role at looking at a lot of these different agencies, which is something that you campaigned on as well. Are you up for that?
Oh, well, that is my skill set. As they say, my DNA is business, creating real jobs, not government jobs. My DNA is working with balance sheets and balancing budgets, working with overregulated business, working with tax structures that don't fit into small business life. So I am very, very well prepared, and I've spent decades doing it. So I really want to spend the next 4 years with Chris, and I want to dig in there, and as he said, be the COO of Kansas and make a big difference.
Wayne Cartman, Chris Kobach right here on The Voice of Reason. That was yesterday. Let's take a break, wrap up hour number one. So much to get to today. Don't worry, we'll get to all of it. Your thoughts and calls as well. This is The Voice of Reason. Stay tuned. Welcome into The Voice of Reason, wrapping up hour number one, broadcasting across the entire Mid-America region here on KQAM. Great to have you along today. Appreciate it. 316-721-8255. We have a lot to get to today when it comes to the omnibus bill. Also, not only did we increase spending at the federal level, we also have a vote today at the state level on taxes. The internet sales tax coming up for a vote today in the House. Be prepared for that. We'll talk about that in a little bit as well. This portion of The Voice of Reason, as it always is on a Friday, you got to remember it's not just a Friday, not just a free-for-all Friday, but it's also a fried chicken Friday breakfast getting underway already at the Inman Harvest Cafe, 112 South Main Street, downtown Inman. Katie's on the line with us. Katie, good morning to you. Happy Fried Chicken Friday.
Good morning, Andy. Happy Fried Chicken Friday to you, too.
Hey, it's great to have you back here, and breakfast already underway. Everybody getting all excited for the weekend, and you guys, as always, are set for one of the best days of the entire week.
It is the best day of the entire week. Yeah, it takes all week to get to Friday.
That's really true. We got to count it down every single week. That's all right. How's breakfast looking this morning? What's the hot thing this morning?
Well, so far it's biscuits and gravy.
Yes.
So I've got my freshly made homemade biscuits here, and then I've got my gravy from scratch. And one of the things that I like to tell people, well, they ask me a lot, why is our food so good? They don't understand. Would they go someplace else that has something real similar? Well, because every place has got biscuits and gravy, right?
Sure.
But they're like, yours is the best. Why? Why is it so good? And let me tell you what it is. It's not a secret ingredient, okay? It's butter.
Butter.
Butter is the key. Because, if you're going to compromise on your ingredients, if you're going to compromise on your basic level of ingredients, then, what else are you compromising on? So we use only the best. We use butter. We use real cream. We use, the sausage that we use is homemade sausage made just down the street at our local grocery store, so it's the best food, too. And that's what makes it the best. And we don't have margarine here ever, so if you think our food is the best, it's because of the butter.
See, I'm getting a trend between lots of cheese and butter, and between those two, I think you can make just about everything there, so it's fantastic.
Right.
I love it.
Cheese is life.
Cheese is kind of life. Well, you have the big buffet from 11 to 1 today for the lunch. You have the big buffet from 5 to 8 o'clock tonight. What's on the agenda throughout the day today?
So on our buffet, we've got our fried chicken, which is always made. It's breaded in-house. Nick's got his own coder that he has spent years developing this coder, and he does test pieces all the time so to make sure that he got it just right. So the coder is freshly made. The chicken is fresh, and we just fry it up as we go. So then we've also got our mashed potatoes, which has got the, like I said before, butter and real cream in it. And then today we're going to have our barbecued meatballs, and we're also going to have scalloped potatoes, which is one of the more popular items that we have. And then, we have a rotating dish usually that I'm not even going to mention what it is because it rotates. And so a lot of times I'm never sure what it's going to be until it goes out there.
I love it. Well, good. It's going to be a wide range of goodies for everybody to enjoy, which you don't want to miss out on. And then, of course, you do have from 5 to 8 o'clock with that buffet your free slice of pie. What kind of pies are you going to have as an option for them today?
Today's pies include chocolate, rhubarb, pumpkin, custard, cherry, coconut, and pecan. And then he's got a banana split that's partially almost ready to go out. So
I love it. Every time I talk to you on a Friday, Katie, by 7 o'clock, right after this interview, my tummy always begins to gurgle because it's hungry because now I've talked about all the delicious food, and I'm ready to jump into a big pile of fried chicken.
Big pile of fried chicken, big pile of maybe crispy hash browns, or I've always thought it'd be fun to kind of get a bunch of dough that we use for our dinner rolls because we make those from scratch too, and just kind of roll around in it.
Exactly.
Yes.
You see everybody roll around with the money on their bed or something. You can roll around with the fried chicken and say, this looks so delicious. It's wonderful.
Yes, it's so yummy.
It's the Inman Harvest Cafe, 112 South Main Street, downtown Inman, just north of Hutchinson. Go check them out today, 620-585-6925, or visit them online at inmanharvestcafe.com. Katie, you guys have fun for breakfast. We'll check in with you here in a couple hours.
All right, thanks. We'll talk to you then.
There we go. Always a pleasure there. Inman Harvest Cafe, proud sponsor of The Voice of Reason. We appreciate that very much. When we come back in hour number 2, we're going to jump head first into this omnibus bill. I do have the response from the NRA. I have some details and response from Congressman Ron Estes. I have some of the details of the bill, the vote numbers, and we'll go over that, get your thoughts on this. I know it's been very frustrating, and I saw a lot of emotion on social media last night as the conservatives, and this is what I pride myself on and what we need to try and do. Let's step away from the emotion and let's look at the raw, hard numbers and the raw, hard facts and see exactly what we can do to change this, what we can do to make it better going forward from here. That's why this is the Voice of Reason. Hour number 2 coming up. Stay here.
It's time for Reason.
But if they disagree with you, then you're not actually promoting freedom of speech, you're actually promoting hate speech. Because in today's times, anything that offends you, that makes you feel uncomfortable, is no longer a freedom of speech, but is now hate speech. If you say, I love Donald Trump, that is now considered fascist hate speech because you're probably a white supremacist and you don't have any place in society.
This is the Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Then I get on my knees and pray. We don't get fooled again. Don't get fooled again.
Oh, yeah, welcome into the Voice of Reason, broadcasting out of the South Central Kansas area here, right here, the heart of the nation, in Wichita, Kansas, on the Big Talker, 1480 on the AM side, 102.5 on the FM side, KQAM, simulcasting KGPT TV, channel 2610. Good morning and welcome aboard. Making it happen today on it's a Friday. And as usual, it is a free-for-all Friday. Anything on your mind, bothering you, troubling you, I get it, especially with the vote that happened last night. We'll talk about it. Don't worry. Let's make it happen today. What do you say?
Baby, let's do it. Yes,
All right. 316-721-8255, 316-721-TALK. If you want to join into the program, you're more than welcome to do so. Shoot me a message all over social media, Facebook, facebook.com/1480KQAM, Twitter at Hoosier Reason, email me, Andy at KQAMradio.com. Let's jump right into it. We have a lot to get to in a short amount of time to do it. As you know, the omnibus bill that was voted on last night, it ended up passing with the House members. The official vote for the House, 256 to 167, 145 Republicans voting for the yay, 111 Democrats voting yay, while the noes were 90 Republicans and 77 Democrats. Now, all four of our Kansas representatives did vote for this bill, along with both of our senators in the state of Kansas, while the Senate ended up voting it with 65 to 32 when it came to the $1.3 trillion spending package, along with 2,200 plus pages of this omnibus bill. Now, I understand that it's a very frustrating situation. We've been very angry. We've been fed up. We've been frustrated with the fact that we do this on the 11th hour, that we do this on a whim, that we throw everything in it. We have no idea what's in it. We don't read the bills before we actually vote on them. That process is going to stop. That process will stop. It needs to stop. Now, this bill goes through the end of the fiscal year, which means it goes through October. We have now the opportunity for appropriations bills, and that's the focus that we need to have on this one. We knew it was happening. We knew it was going to come. We've done this since 1997, really. We've done this for a really long time. We do not have enough majority Republicans in either chamber in order to stop this kind of shenanigans, which means this election coming up this fall is the most important thing that we could possibly focus on. It is more important than the presidential vote that we did in 2016. Because now's the time that we can focus on not doing a lump sum stimulus package, omnibus package, whatever, big lump sum, whatever bill, throwing everything into it, voting on it to see what's in it, and then just throwing money out the window and doing whatever we've been doing. It hasn't worked, and we need to stop it. Now is the time for us to focus on our legislators, to focus on the appropriations bills, 11 of them that we'll be discussing throughout June, July, and August, and that they'll be voting on. Which means that we're going to break it down into different categories of the government spending. We're going to be able to look at them. We're going to be able to cut some stuff out of it. We're going to be able to start consolidating some of our funding. We're going to be able to cut some of our funding, and we can do it in the appropriate manner. We need to make that happen. I saw a lot of emotional social media comments last night when this vote was going on about how we're done, we're throwing in the white towel, we're going to vote out all of our elected officials. It's not the time for that yet. It's not the time for that yet. We knew this was going to coming. We knew it would hurt. We cannot have responses like that. We pride ourselves as conservatives that we don't use the emotional arguments. We cannot have the immediate emotional response to these kinds of things as well. We need to look at this realistically. Here's the response, and here's the official comment and the statement from Congressman Ron Estes on this. Kansans will benefit from several important measures included in the omnibus bill spending bill, included the funding for our military and a 2.4% raise for all military personnel families, a fix to the grain glitch when it comes to agriculture, an exclusion for regulating methane on farms, a delay on burdensome electronic logging provisions for livestock haulers, critical funding for infrastructure and rural broadband, and it leaves funding for Planned Parenthood at the discretion of President Trump, rather than automatic renewals for abortion providers sought by Nancy Pelosi and the Democrats. And we'll talk about that in just a second. While I supported this measure, I am extremely disappointed that the bill continues to grow the deficit, and I will hold the president and the GOP leadership accountable for the promises made to get our fiscal house in order. That is the focus that we have to have when it comes to the appropriations. Now, we spoke with Congressman Estes just a few days ago, if we remember, and a few of the clips that I wanted to pull and replay for you here, he explained what was coming up with this bill, what needed to happen, and what he anticipated to happen with this.
Ideally, fund the government for the rest of this fiscal year through September 30th and get away from this 30-day short-term continuing resolutions that really are harmful. I mean, they don't allow us to plan. They don't allow us to, the military's having to spend more money on their purchases because they can't plan ahead and issue orders for multiple versions of planes or spare parts, and so we're really hurting ourselves.
That's what Congressman Estes had to say as of Wednesday when we spoke with him. Knew this bill was coming up. Of course, it was going to be the last-minute thing. The government would have shut down on Friday today, which is no harm to us. I mean, we don't really care. But at the same time, this is better, the fact that we're doing this out to the end of the year, fiscal year, as opposed to just doing it on a month-by-month basis the way we've been doing it for, the last year. And every time that we do this, then it gets rammed in at the last minute. Every time that this happens, then we include more junk into it. Every time this happens, we increase spending. Every time this happens, and it's a last-minute shutdown threat, and the Democrats are panicky about a shutdown, and the Republicans are panicky about taking care of the military. It's the typical party lines. It's nothing new. Now, some of the information that Congressman Estes put in here, agriculturally, he likes some of the stuff that was in here for those benefits. It does give the 2.4% raise for all military personnel and their families. The other part of this that's very interesting, I saw the outcry at first was the fact that it continues to fund Planned Parenthood, which is true. Would I have liked to seen our congressmen and women vote against this? Absolutely. I would have been much more happy if they would have voted against it, but this is one of those where we do the slap on the wrist, not the full-out turn away and just cut ties with them completely. This bill, as it does continue to fund Planned Parenthood, let me ask you a question. Congress, with the makeup of Congress right now, even with our 4 legislators here in the state of Kansas and our 2 senators, would we have been able to have enough votes at the federal level to completely defund Planned Parenthood? Would it been able to happen? Would it been able to have been happening right now with Chuck Schumer, with Nancy Pelosi, with the Democrats that are still in somewhat of control of the Senate, with the lack of majority that we have at the Senate with the Republicans, with the moderate Republicans that we have in the House? Would we be able to defund Planned Parenthood right now? No. The answer to that is no. It's not going to happen as much as we would like it to happen. This is a baby step thing that we need to actually congratulate in this process, in the fact that now it's not going to be the auto renewals for Planned Parenthood funding, but now it actually leaves the discretion to the president. So now what's our focus need to be? We need to focus on the president of the United States to say, you know what? It's at my discretion now without congressional renewals for Planned Parenthood funding. Now, guess what? I have the authority to say, we're going to start defunding this guy. We're going to stop sending money to you guys because the president now has the power under the ruling of this bill. That is good news. We need to be proud of that. Would we love to have seen just the flat-out defunding of it? Absolutely we would. But it's the baby steps. We can't be reactionary. We can't want everything all at once or else nothing at all. This is good. Yeah, it's going to continue to fund it, but now the president has the opportunity by himself without Congress that would do nothing to actually do something himself. That, my friends, is good news. When we spoke with Congressman Estes on Wednesday, a couple days ago, he had mentioned that there's going to be junk thrown into this that we would not like to see.
The problem we're running into is that people are viewing this as, okay, it's election year. It may be the last chance to get, some pet project in. So they're trying to shove a lot of stuff into it. And I know our leadership has been working, trying to negotiate and get this moving forward. And we're wanting to make sure we stand up for good policies without blowing the spending. I mean, one of the things the Democrats said in negotiations early on was, well, okay, we'll just blow through those budget caps that we just set a month ago, and we'll just spend more money, and that way we can buy all this stuff. And
wow,
that's just the wrong way to think.
It is the wrong way to think, and he knew it was coming. He knew it would happen, and it happened. That's exactly what we predicted. And would we have liked to have seen a vote no on some of these things? Absolutely. But this isn't the needle that broke the camel's back. This isn't the feather that broke the camel's back, if you want to use that analogy. It's not the needle in the haystack kind of thing. This is the slap on the wrist. Shame on you. We don't like it. Let's focus on the bigger picture here, the fact that we have appropriations coming up that we really need to use all of our political mojo on. 316-721-8255. Let's take some phone calls. Get your thoughts on this. I know that I may be in the minority here. I know a lot of people are very upset about this, but I want to think about this rationally before we respond inappropriately and we do more damage to our cause than we actually do positiveness. So let's get your thoughts on this. 316-721-8255. Line number 1. Good morning. What's your name?
Hey, happy Friday.
Hey, good morning, Myron. How are you, sir?
I'm pretty.
There you go. There you go. What's on your mind?
Oh, I just I understand that because of the way the House and Senate majority leaders are, that we're going to get this kind of junk. However, I'm a little disappointed when the Democrat leadership is as happy as they are about this bill.
Sure.
Just on principle, I would have liked our 4 congressmen to vote no. It's going to happen anyway because of the leadership. But I want to see those grins wiped off the Democrats' face, because if they're happy, we've been hosed.
Well, you're right. And, I mean, it would feel very nice to rub it in their face a little bit, to show that we actually have a united Republican Party and that we're going to stand for something. And to vote no against it on principle would have been really nice to see, because knowing that it would have gone through anyways, and the fact that we could say, hey, you know what? It'll pass. Let's have a clean record by voting no on this. I would have loved to have seen that. Absolutely. And that's why, but I see this as more of that slap on the wrist of, hey, what are you doing? Let's focus on the priority here and let's get back on track, as opposed to, I can't believe you did that. Let's vote you out because I'm sick and tired of you. We're not to that point quite yet with any of our elected officials in Kansas, I don't think, when it comes to this specific bill.
Yeah, my concern is, of course, this is an election year, so let's do something, personal opinion, let's do something really bad now so that when it gets closer to the election, we can talk about what we're going to do in the future.
Well, again, I think that we have the opportunity to make that judgment beforehand. We have the primaries that are coming up this fall in August, September area, and by that time we'll have the appropriations bills that we'll know exactly what's in them. So we can say, hey, you know what? You voted for the continuing resolutions. We voted for the omnibus bills. Now we have the appropriations opportunities. You said that we're going to start cleaning up our spending habits for that opportunity. Did we do that? And by the time that they vote on that, for the appropriations by late summer, early fall, will be the time of the primaries. And we can gauge and say, you know what? You kept your word. You fought hard. And guess what? Now we're cutting back 5% of our budget. And we're actually, that's going to be tough. Let's start off with 1%. We cut 1% of our budget. We got rid of some of the porculus. We got rid of some of the special interests because we broke it down through appropriations. And now we see something positive actually happening here. And we can make that judgment by this fall for the primaries. And that's what we need to focus on right now, because to me that's way more important than this omnibus bill right now. It's not that big of, it's sad, it's frustrating, but impact wise it actually has very little impact on us on the long term.
Yeah, I just my concern is, okay, we're going to do this now, but trust us, we're going to fix it in the future.
Sure. And we hear, exactly. You're absolutely right. Myra and I appreciate it. And we hear that all the time, which is why I'm ready to see some action very soon when it comes to the process this summer, as opposed to just hearing, you know what, I voted for that, but just trust me, reelect me, and we'll do it again next year. No, that's not going to fly this time. You're right. That's not going to fly. Let's focus on what's going to happen this summer with the bigger picture. Also, there was a rumor spreading around about the fact that it was going to be including in this was some anti-gun legislation with the NRA and with the Second Amendment, and was starting to ban certain firearms and starting to do some things. Not true, not the case. That's not what happened. And I want to touch on that when we come back. Your thoughts on calls on this. I know that you're fired up. I know that you're very worked up about this, and I want to get you on the air to vent about this on Facebook, on the air. Give us a call, 316-721-8255. 22 minutes past the hour. Lots to get to today. Plus, at the bottom of the hour, David Rosler. We've talked to him before with Orbiter movie that's been shunned by Hollywood. We'll talk with him. Also, Mark Gietzen with the Kansas Coalition for Life at 8 o'clock today. It's going to be a big show. Lots to get to. Your thoughts and calls as well when we come back. This is The Voice of Reason.
This is The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier on the Big Talker, KQAM.
Hey, welcome back into The Voice of Reason. 26 minutes past the hour. Appreciate you hanging out with us today. It is a Friday, the Free for All Friday. Lots happening. Big things all across the board. 316-721-8255, 316-721-TALK. If you're going to join in, we got some calls here we'll take in just a second. I do want to, however, I want to read the statement from the National Rifleman Association, the NRA, in response to this bill. First off, there was no anti-gun legislation in this. It did not harm the Second Amendment at all. They did take out national reciprocity, and I say that's a good thing because I want national reciprocity to be voted on its own with its merit, and I want it to be rammed through that way. And I think it's going to happen. I think it will happen. It's no place to be put into a budget bill, and I don't want it to be included into a budget bill when it comes to national reciprocity. So that did get taken out, and I'm okay with that. The other part of it was the Dickey Amendment, where they said that it was going to fund research for gun violence, for gun control measures, and that's not the case. The official response from the National Rifle Association, here's what they have to say. This is hashtag fake news. According to them, the clarifying language, this is directly from the NRA, the clarifying language added to the omnibus spending bill simply states that research into firearms and violence is permissible, as it always has been. For whatever reason, some elected officials have not understood this concept and has asked for clarification. Here's the exact report language of the bill. Quote, while appropriations language prohibits the CDC and other agencies from using appropriated funds to advocate or promote gun control, the Secretary of Health and Human Services has stated the CDC has the authority to conduct research on the causes of gun violence. That's all it is. That's all it is. It allows them to do research on violence and gun violence. It does not give any rights in any way, shape, or form in order to promote gun control measures, even if it based on whatever results that they come to find out with, which, as you know, government studies usually already have the end result, and they just try and finagle the research to make it look like that in the end. So regardless, it does not create any type of gun control. All it does is it automatically allows the research of violence. We got about 2 minutes here. Let's go and take some phone calls. What do you say? Good morning. What's your name?
Scott.
Hey, good morning, Scott. How are you?
Well, that's all part of socialism there when you want to mess with the guns. I mean, they're going to always have that. But my question is, why are they trying to move war on North Korea and Iran? Is because the World Bank is trying to control those countries, and they don't have control of their finances. So the U.S. is trying to play policeman. So when you have that type of thing going on, you have more of a threat, and they're just worrying about local type of gun violence. Well, I mean, that's always been here in the United States, and just like the Wild West. But,
well, there's gun violence all over the place. Scott, I appreciate it. I don't really want to talk about North Korea right now, especially with this big vote on the omnibus bill and the spending. Now, I mean, if you want to relate it to some of the trade wars that's going on, I mean, we can relate it to the trade that Donald Trump's trying to do with NAFTA when it comes to China, when it comes to North Korea, when it comes to some of the negotiations externally like that, then, I mean, we have some work to do there as well. But look, we have a lot of moving parts right now, a lot of moving parts when it comes to the appropriations, as we had mentioned, when it comes to the NAFTA and the trade negotiations with China and with Mexico and with Canada and with all these other places. We have a lot of moving parts. It's not all bad. It's going to be all right. We have some opportunities. I don't want them to stay as hanging opportunities. I want them to actually become something, but I see the potential there. Now's not the time to say, I'm done with you, I don't want to speak to you. Now's the time to say, all right, let's focus on the priorities and let's make something happen so that way you can win my vote again in November. Lots of stuff coming up out of the R News when we come back. David Rosler on the show. This is The Voice of Reason. Stay tuned.
Just isn't enough.
Is that all you got?
It's time to wake up the right way.
All right.
This is The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier on the Big Talker, 1480 AM and 1025 FM, KQAM.
Oh, man, great to have you along today. It is a Friday. The Free for All Friday rolls right along. Lots to get to today as the big omnibus spending bill happened last night. A lot of people very upset and worked up about that. We'll be talking a little bit more about that in just a little bit. More details coming out, especially when it comes to the Second Amendment portion of that with the NRA's response. Also, with the Planned Parenthood portion of that, the continuation of the funding. However, the great opportunity that we have now that I think will actually cease a lot of that funding. We'll talk about all that in just a little bit as well. I do have to say, it was funny as I was following and watching all of the outlash and the cry from the vote from last night, which I was upset. But I wasn't really paying attention to it at the time just because of the fact that we were at Disney on Ice with my 3-year-old, and that right there just made the night. I didn't really care what was happening when the omnibus bill came out and the vote was finalized, because seeing her face, our little 3-year-old, seeing her face at Disney on Ice, and the first princess that came out, and her eyes got about 3 times as big as they usually did, and her jaw just dropped, and the tears started swelling up in her eyes, and she started crying because she was so excited to be able to see Belle from Beauty and the Beast. Right there, totally made it. I'm like, you know what? Spending bill, we make the difference. You and I, we make the difference. We do what we do to make the changes. We are the ones that actually have the impact. It's not Congress. It's not the government. The government's going to do what they always do. That's been the same process of omnibus bills and spending bills and crazy, ridiculous shenanigans since 1997 was the last time that we actually had an appropriations process the way that it needed to be done. And look what's happened since then under George W. Bush and under Barack Obama. It's okay. We have more important issues to focus on come this summer, which we'll talk about again in just a little bit. So as we talk about things that we can make a change with and that we can do, sometimes it is important to stand up to that bully. It's sometimes important to stand up to that monopoly, so to speak, when they control and dominate maybe the language, maybe the message, maybe the tone of certain conversations. And it would have been nice to see some of our congressmen and women vote against the bill last night. But one way that we can do that at home is we can support some of the offbeat or some of the non-mainstream products that actually get relayed to us. And on the phone with us, we've talked to him before, his movie Orbiter, as it is the Christian alternative to many of the Hollywood mainstream movies that are actually out in theaters right now. And David Rosler, the creator of Orbiter movie, is on the line with us. David, how are you, my friend?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me on the phone.
Yeah, I appreciate you. Yeah, I appreciate you coming back on. It's been about a couple of months since we've chatted with you, as you've been talking about creating this movie and making it, and you've gotten a lot of heat from it. You've gotten a lot of response negatively from the mainstream, and they've tried to come after you for that. How's the process going right now?
Slow.
Well,
yeah, because we're up against very powerful, very organized forces. I know that sounds a little conspiracy theory, a little paranoid, but you've been to the website orbitermovie.com, and if you go to the Twitter page particularly, you'll see unarguable examples which lead to the inescapable conclusion that there are people who are organized against this project. They hate it, and it makes sense. It makes sense now. What we've been seeing since the Project Veritas video came out, because at one point in the Project Veritas videos, you see one of the guys that.
Oh, did we lose him? Are you there, David? Okay, I think we lost him here, but it's okay. You know what? Actually, it's kind of interesting that we lost David. We'll try and get him back on the line. I'm not sure what happened. We just got cut off there, but I did just get a message that on the other line with us on hold to talk about the omnibus bill in detail with us right now is actually Congressman Ron Estes with us. Congressman, are you there?
Good morning, Andy. How are you?
I am great, my friend. I appreciate you calling us. Kind of a surprise, and I appreciate that very much. There is a lot of information coming out with this omnibus bill, isn't there?
There really is. There's a lot of information, but there's also a lot of misinformation.
Yes,
that's I think keeping people upset when it's not necessary. I mean, yes, it's unfortunate that we're spending so much money. That's a bad thing.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't like that. It was a struggle to make the vote to do that. One of the things we had to go through, I mean, again, going back to what you were saying earlier, is it's just a horrible process.
Sure.
That we're not going through regular order. We're not letting our appropriations committees sit down and analyze what our spending should be, and then laying that out and making amendments, passing it on the floor, doing it in an open and transparent process instead of doing this behind the scenes things. But sure. I want to particularly talk about a couple of things that are some misinformation around, and a lot of people are throwing around the term that they've heard that we're funding Planned Parenthood in this bill, and that's not the case.
It's not. Okay.
There is no authorization to fund Planned Parenthood. Now, unfortunately, there's not also wording that says we will never spend any money with Planned Parenthood. What the Obama administration did was they used Title X grant money from the Health and Human Services Department, and they basically gave all these grants to Planned Parenthood. And what we've done with this bill is we've stopped what the Democrats wanted to do, which was just grandfather all of those grants to Planned Parenthood in. So we prohibited that. They can apply for those grants again. This bill does allow them to apply, but President Trump has said that he's going to have his Health and Human Services Department not award grants to Planned Parenthood, and instead he's going to offer those grants to pregnancy crisis centers and total realistic complete health care centers for their use. So it is true that there's not specific wording that
Sure.
Planned Parenthood is prohibited, but I'm trusting the president his word that he's going to follow through on this and make sure that this money gets spent with good total health care.
Sure. And you mentioned in your official statement that came out early this morning, late last night, talking about this plan, but the Planned Parenthood portion of this, it goes to the discretion now of the presidency to decide what he wants to do with some of this money, which means that it's not going to be tied up through Congress, which would be extremely difficult for us to be able to defund it the way that we've talked about before, because right now, as you know, up there with the moderates and with so many Democrats still having somewhat of control, that we would have a very difficult time defunding Planned Parenthood. Now, this bill gives the president an opportunity to do it kind of on his own, correct?
That's right. It does. And that's what he said he wanted to do. That's what he wanted to say, that he'd do that and make sure that it happened. When you pass a bill, you have to get it through both the House and the Senate. We could get that wording through the House. That would never get through the Senate with Schumer threatening another shutdown and just basically just not giving the votes to pass the bill.
Mm-hmm. You talk about, I played the clip earlier on the show. I don't know if you heard it or not, but I played the clip about when we talked just 2 days ago, and you had warned the fact that people are going to throw a bunch of nice little pet projects in the special interests, and because it's an election year, they're going to try and get things for their districts and for their areas. That's exactly what happened. And this is really nothing new with the 11th hour vote, with trying to cram it down with the scare tactic of the government shutdown, and the how dare that we actually shut down the government. We can't be doing that sort of thing. This is nothing new. This gives us the opportunity for all those pet projects that we just voted on in this omnibus bill that we can start retracting when it comes to the appropriations process in a couple of months, correct?
That's right. And we can come back and like I said, get the appropriations committees to work on that in a straightforward manner and get that set up for 2019. There were a lot of things that brought up for funding that, this pet project or that pet project. I'm also pleased that some actual good progress came out of this on some of those things, funding for rural broadband and some of, fixes to some of the other problems that had been built up. So there were some good things in this, even though there were the bad. And so we're looking at how do we make sure we get those implemented for the rest of the year and done efficiently and effectively, because that's the other piece to look at is there's only 6 months left in the year.
Sure.
So I'm going to make sure that money's spent efficiently and effectively. And we did give the military some extra authority in terms of how they spend that to make sure it's just not spent willy-nilly just
Sure.
to get it done, but they can focus on appropriate things.
Absolutely.
I do.
Yeah, go ahead.
I do want to mention one other thing around. You mentioned earlier about the NRA and talking about the NICS reporting system. There's a little bit of misinformation around that as well.
Sure.
What this bill does is it actually enforces that federal agencies utilize the system that exists, make sure that the NICS system that is out there today is operational and functional. And so those are good things that are in the bill. Now, what we couldn't get worded into the bill is to fix a major problem that's out there that was created by the Obama administration, in that the Obama administration set up the rules so that the veterans, if a veteran had a fiduciary, maybe a son or a daughter who handled their finances, maybe their spouse even, that the Veterans Administration listed them on this database as somebody that not capable of owning and caring for a firearm, and that's just wrong. And unfortunately, we couldn't get the wording to stop the VA in this bill. We do have a bill pending before the Senate. We're waiting on the Senate to vote on it. That actually forces the VA to give people those rights back. But I think there's some confusion about the bill doesn't take away the rights. It just doesn't go far enough in this omnibus to stop that probably unconstitutional action that the Obama administration did.
Sure. So there were two different parts to the Second Amendment that caused some concern, at least from what I had heard from. And one of them, as you mentioned, was the fixed NICS. Now, was this the same fixed NICS that was originally in the National Reciprocity Bill, where they kind of joined the two together to move forward that way?
It was the same fixed NICS wording in that National Reciprocity Bill. The problem, one of the negatives, was the Democrats wanted to strip out the concealed carry reciprocity. So that concealed carry reciprocity wording is not in the bill.
Okay. Now, is there an opportunity for that one to come back up soon? Because I don't mind the fact that national reciprocity didn't get included in a budget bill. I'm okay with that, honestly. But I want to make sure that does go through. And I know the fixed NICS was kind of the negotiation or the compromise of giving the Democrats a little bit of what they wanted with the fixed NICS, along with national reciprocity, with is what the Republicans want. I'm hoping that stripping the two doesn't give us the opportunity to have the national reciprocity be shut down later.
I think we need to come back and put in the national reciprocity bill and let the senators vote on it. Let all these Democrat senators from these states that President Trump carried, so many of them, 7 or 8 of them, they're up for re-election this year.
Sure.
And let them vote against people's rights to have firearms.
Sure, absolutely. The second part of it that was brought up was the Dickey Amendment, which talked about funding for research on gun violence. Now, some thought that it was some way to be able to create some gun control measures, but the NRA came out and I read their statement about how it was nothing more than just clarifying that there's already money set aside in order to research gun violence, but it doesn't have any type of measure that allows them to create any type of gun control from that. Is that correct as well?
That's right.
Okay.
What you read, the NRA statement's right from what's in there. I mean, one of the things that, again, going back to the Obama administration, they wanted to use federal money to promote gun control, and they wanted to direct doctors to build a list of people that own firearms. When you're going through your regular annual doctor's checkup, and that doesn't fund that and allow that. It does allow some research into, particularly as it deals with mental health issues, and I think there's going to be more effort put in the country in general of how do we get back to helping people who have an issue, helping work through that, make sure that they get what they need, that they at least help understand how they fit in society and how they can continue to be useful people and useful citizens. Just even if things aren't 100% perfect. I mean, we all have ups and downs in our lives, but we need to make sure that we're working together in this.
Sure. No, absolutely. Congressman Ron Estes, first off, I appreciate you very much for jumping on such short a notice and giving us some details on this. There was a lot of misinformation that did float around there. It's still, as you know, and as you agree as well, that it's still not the best bill, and the fact that it still is $1.3 trillion and it was 2,200 pages of stuff that you guys only had close to 1,000 minutes to read and vote on. It's unfortunate that we have a process like that, but I've been trying to say this morning that this is not the end-all be-all for this one. This is the same old that we've been seeing for the last 10, 15 years. Anyways, now's the time for us to actually focus on the priority that we can have with the appropriations this summer that's going to make things a heck of a lot better.
That's right. We need to get back to regular order. We need to get our appropriations committees working, and we get all of our 12 bills passed last year out of the House, but the Senate didn't take them up. So we need to start pushing that process again.
Sure. Very good. Congressman Ron Estes, thank you so much for calling in, my friend. I appreciate that very much.
All right. Thank you, Andy. Have a good day.
Hey, pleasure right there. Let's go ahead and take a break, wrapping up hour number 2. Lots more to get to. We'll get your thoughts and calls on that and more. This is The Voice of Reason. Stay here.
The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Bill on Facebook says, Andy, I think you're wrong on this one. It is a big deal. We need to look into this. We're tired of the shutdown threats. We're tired of the Republicans voting yes on this stuff. We're sick of it. I understand. I get it. First off, I want to thank Congressman Ron Estes. Look, I didn't reach out. I didn't reach out to him. I figured that they'd be busy wrapping up some of the discussions, and being there late yesterday that wouldn't have a chance to get him was listening, and he called on his own accord. So I appreciate that very much. And the fact that we have a congressman in this district that actually does want to reach out the day after a major vote and explain the vote. Now, look, you may disagree with them on it, which is fine. And all the power to you to disagree on it. But the fact that he's open enough to be able to call in and talk about it the day after and explain his position. This is what I was thinking at the time. This is what I believed in, and this is what we want to do. This is the goal. This is the tunnel vision that I have on this appropriations process, making things better in the long term. Look, this is only a 6-month bill. This is only a 6-month budget. And the reason I don't feel it's that big of a deal is just because of the fact that it's another 6 months of the same stuff we've been doing since 1997, really. For the last 10 years, 20 years, 15 years, whatever. It's the same process. There's nothing new to it. It's not good. I'm not saying it's good and that we should just accept it. I am saying, though, that it's the last time. Get it in now, because it's the last time that you're going to get to, because it was your 6-month omnibus bill that's been happening for the last 15, 20 years. Get ready, because now things are about to change. Now we're going towards a legit 9 to 11 different bills for appropriations, and we're going to start cutting out the slough. We're going to start cutting out the fat. We're going to start doing the things that actually need to be done. That's the focus that I have. And if they fail on that one, then we can have another look at this on the seriousness of who we want representing us. If they fail in that process. Right now, this is just the roll your eyes and go on about the next thing. There's a lot of money to it, and I understand that. I just don't see it as that big of a priority compared to what's potentially to come. David Rosler, not sure what happened to him. We'll get him hopefully back on the show by the end of the show today. Stay tuned. Lots more coming up. This is The Voice of Reason, hour number 3, right around the corner.
It's time for Reason.
But if they disagree with you, then you're not actually promoting freedom of speech. You're actually promoting hate speech. Because in today's times, anything that offends you, that makes you feel uncomfortable, is no longer a freedom of speech, but is now hate speech. If you say, I love Donald Trump, that is now considered fascist hate speech because you're probably a white supremacist and you don't have any place in society.
This is The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Then I'll get on my knees and pray. We don't get fooled again. Don't get fooled again.
Yeah, welcome into The Voice of Reason, hour number 3. The Voice of Reason rocking it today. Hailing out of Wichita, Kansas, right here on the Big Talker, 1480 on the AM side, 102.5 of the FM side, KQAM, simulcasting on KGPT TV, channel 2610. Good morning. Welcome aboard. It's great to have you along today. I'm Andy Hoosier. What a day it's been so far. We've had the surprise call from Congressman Ron Estes. David Rosler, we'll get him back on the show hopefully at the bottom of the hour, as we got cut off for whatever reason. It was funny. He was talking about the conspiracy of the fact that they've been so against him promoting this movie, and then all of a sudden, poof, and his line cut off. And I'm not sure what happened. So a lot of interesting news coming out there. We'll talk about the omnibus bill again in a little bit and get your thoughts and calls on that as more listeners chiming in on social media, their opinions on that. We'll get to those in just a minute. First off, it is a Friday. As usual, whatever's on your mind, bothering you, troubling you, it does not matter. It is a free-for-all. Let's work through it together. Let's spar a little bit. Let's have a little bit of fun, because that's just what we do. Let's do it. All right. 316-721-8255, 316-721-TALK. If you want to join into the program, you're more than welcome to do so. I am excited about our next guest, though, and it kind of falls right in line with what happened with the omnibus bill, as Congressman Estes said. Not necessarily funding for Planned Parenthood, but grants that kind of came through on the back end that they can't really do anything about. Now leaving the discretion of Planned Parenthood and the funding of to the discretion of the president as opposed to Congress. And right now with Congress is not going to be able to actually... Congress will not defund Planned Parenthood. Let's just put it straightforward. They will not do it. There's not enough Republican conservatives that actually value the right to life that are actually going to repeal the funding of Planned Parenthood. What we need to do, as it always is, no matter what, even with this budgetary bill, is we need to fight things on the local level. We need to fight things at the state level. We need to have our community do the right things, and things will fall into place. That's the voice you and I have, the power and the ability for you and I to have that power and that ability. And on the phone with us to talk to us about what we can do at the local level, especially when it comes to this issue, he is the head of the Kansas Coalition for Life. He's Mr. Mark Gietzen on the line with us. Mark, how are you, my friend?
Good morning, Andy. I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm living the dream. I appreciate you coming on the show, and it's relatively appropriate, I think, especially as we talk about the budget at the federal level, the funding of Planned Parenthood, and what we can do to be able to stop some of these atrocities happening. Now, we are a state that's very pro-life. Governor Sam Brownback had done a wonderful, wonderful job starting to protect the right to life. Governor Jeff Collier actually came out yesterday and made the same statement, defending and trying to fight the courts on some of the decisions that we have made. So first off, we do need to be very proud that we live in a state that respects the right to life, I believe, more so than many other states.
That's true. In regard to what you said at the beginning of this topic, you're saying that we need to look at the local instead of the national. Andy, we need to look at both. We can't neglect what's going on in Washington, D.C. in terms of Planned Parenthood funding. We can't neglect the fact that several counties independently fund Planned Parenthood, even here in Kansas. We have to cut off funding everywhere. It's unacceptable that taxpayer money is used to take the human life of an innocent unborn child.
Sure.
And we just have to put our foot down and say no more. And we have to do that at every level of government, local, state, and federal.
Absolutely. No, you're absolutely right. I mean, it's got to be a fight that we need to have all around. Now, talking about the state of Kansas, talk about, first off, the program, Kansas Coalition for Life. How long have you been around, and what do you do exactly?
Well, the Kansas Coalition for Life has been around since 2004. We were an outgrowth of a group, the Kansas Republican Coalition for Life, from the Phyllis Schlafly days. But we are a nonpartisan group, and it's actually been much better as a nonpartisan group than as a partisan group, because we get support from pro-life people of all parties or of no party. And actually what we do, brace yourself, we are the most pro-choice group in the country, because we actually provide choice for these women that feel forced into an abortion. Our niche in the pro-life movement is we stand at the gate or at the entrance of abortion facilities in Kansas, and we offer help to these mothers that are going in for an abortion. And if they'll accept our help, oftentimes it's financial help. Sometimes they may need an attorney or a place to stay, or maybe just need somebody to talk to them. And we have, over the years now, since 2004, we've saved 520 documented babies that have been saved through our program.
Wow.
And some of these mothers have taken a lot of rent payments and a lot of paying their utilities or their car insurance or whatever, helping them through, because about 50% of the time abortions are done not for any social reason, but strictly for financial reasons. The mother feels that she can't afford the baby, and this is where we step in to fill the gap and say, you know what, we're going to help you. We don't want that baby to have to die for lack of money. And Andy, we've saved babies. Our most remarkable one was several years ago, but we paid one electric bill. We didn't even pay the whole bill. We paid the amount that she had to have paid before her power would be cut off,
Sure.
which was $47, and we saved the baby's life. And from there, the family picked it up. We didn't have to do anything more. So for $47, we saved the life of that child. It's open, blatant bribery, but it's bribery in a good way. It's saying, look, we're going to help you. You don't have to be forced into this decision that you don't want, your baby doesn't want, actually society doesn't want, and we're going to give you a real choice. And if you'll accept our help, then we can save the baby. And by the way, when we help them, we're not just there until the baby is born. You hear many pro-choice people criticize the pro-life movement, saying that, they're there until the baby's born, and then it's, hands off and goodbye. No, we're there until the baby turns 18. and we have not been in business for 18 years. So we have lots of our lifesaver moms that have babies in grade school and kids that are growing up. And there's a total of 520 of them. Well, the last three, actually from 516 on, they're still pregnant. So
wow.
we are dealing with mothers that don't really want to have an abortion, that felt forced into it, and by offering help to them, we are saving lives in the only way we know how to do it.
To watch the kids grow up, as you mentioned, I mean, you follow them through, and now some of them are in grade school and they're growing up.
Sure.
To watch them and to see that, how does it make you feel just to know that potentially that child wouldn't be going to school today if they would have made a different decision?
It's an exceptional mother that will let us broadcast that and so on, but it's just totally, it makes my life. I mean, I just, there's nothing greater than knowing that you've helped someone. And when you look at a child that you know full well that child would have been killed in an abortion and would have been thrown out with the medical waste, and here's this child, jumping up and down on your lap, or making making her mother run after her or him or whatever. These kids, kids are just so wonderful. And when you see that, there's nothing makes you feel better than having helped out. And this goes not only for the people that are standing at the gate. God bless them. There's people at the gate right now. But you don't have to do that. If you want to help just by helping us financially, it's quite a burden to pay all the rent and all the utility bills and all of the other costs that we are paying for these moms. And oftentimes it's the same people that are taking a shift out on site and giving their time that we also have to go to them and say, hey, we need your money too. But if you want to become a donor, that's easy if you don't feel called to be out on site. But we need both people that are willing to put in time. You don't have to give us a dime. Come on out and help us at the gate. Just offer this literature to these moms, or just hold a sign if you don't feel capable of communicating with the lifesaver mom or the mom to be, and you don't feel like you can do that. Well, then let someone else do that, and you can hold a sign. But we need help on site. We need financial help. Andy, I'm a real easy guy to get along with. I'm going to ask you for two things: all of your time and all of your money.
That's right. Very simple things. You don't got to worry about it. Well, one of them, to really drive it home and to show that example, talk about one of the stories that you've had is Doreen. Talk about what Doreen's going through right now.
Well, Andy, that is an exceptional case. We've never had a case like Doreen before, and you're going to have to keep me on a tight leash here because this story has so much detail and there's so much to it. I know it is going to become a 2020 news magazine or a 60 Minutes article or something like that. When you look at her background, this girl was only a few years ago living in the Congo, and you hear of some Kansans thinking, well, I'm way out in western Kansas, I'm almost not attached to civilization. This girl was really not attached to civilization. No electricity in their town, no roads in their town, no airport, there's just a jungle village, and they were attacked by the competing groups there. There's a lot of infighting among the Rwanda and the Congolese, and some of it has to do with religion, some of it's Muslim Christian, some of it is just territorial. In this case, Doreen thinks it's more territorial, but their village came under attack. Her father raised cattle. Just like a cattle rancher in Kansas, much the same. But they were not allowed to have any firearms, not even to protect their cattle from the wild animals. And as such, since they're unarmed, then you get these roving groups of rebels that are well armed with automatic weapons and so on. They come in, they'll just wipe out the village. And Doreen and her older sister escaped with her older sister's child, and they ran away when their village was under attack. But all of her dad's cattle were stolen. Her dad and her mom were shot and killed, and then gasoline was poured on them, and they were burned to death. And so Doreen was left with her village totally gone. and was refugeed to Kenya, and then from Kenya stayed in the refugee camp a couple of years, and in 2016 was brought to Wichita, Kansas. She was engaged at the time to a gentleman who was in a village a few miles away, and the same thing happened to his village. And she assumed that her boyfriend, Richard, was killed, and Richard assumed that she was killed. As it turned out, Richard was refugeed through the Red Cross, and she was refugeed through the United Nations. And for some of your listeners that are readers, they might have heard of the Longfellow poem called Evangeline. Much the same situation playing out here in real life, where you have, the engaged couple were split up, and they had spent a lot of time looking for each other and not really knowing that they existed. Well, thanks to Facebook, they found each other on Facebook and were delighted, and they were able to make contact with each other. But through the bureaucracy of the UN, they would not let Doreen go to France to be with her fiancé. They forced her to come to America. And then she thought it was going to be impossible to move back. She had no concept of in her mind of human rights and so on. And when they turned her down to go to France, which she's never been to France either. She'd never been out of this little village where she grew up. And anyway, long story short, we are trying to help this girl get back to France, and Richard, although he's not the father of the child that she's pregnant with, he has communicated with me on Facebook, and he's willing to be a father to this child just as if it was his own. Of course, he's upset of what happened to Doreen. Now, she wasn't raped or anything like that. It was a situation that it's one of these things you can't make this up. But she went through the program for refugees. They taught her how to drive a car, but they didn't teach her how to park it. And she could drive places, but when she got there, she didn't know how to park her car, or she thought she couldn't. She can do that now.
Sure.
But she would get to her apartment complex, she'd stop in the middle of the street, she'd knock on the door of a neighbor and say, "Can you go park my car?" And she was worried about hitting other cars, and actually she had a little accident, and that made her gun-shy. But so this guy that was parking her car, he ends up taking advantage of her. His wife and family had left and gone to California, and so here they are, two single people together, and you know what happens. And so she gets pregnant, and then when she was coming in for an abortion, we stopped her at the gate, and it's been a wonderful event, having met her, having been able to convince her that abortion was wrong, and she's become truly pro-life in her heart. She didn't know it was actually a baby was being formed inside, and now that she knows, and we've showed her some videos and so on, she's become a strong pro-lifer and has helped us save two other babies from other refugees or other immigrants that would have otherwise been killed.
I love that.
We're trying to move this girl to France, and that's really outside of our financial abilities. We have a special account set up. It's going to take about $4,000. We expect to move her to France, and we have a special fund set up. We have $450 in that fund, and if someone would like to help two lovers that have been separated through the worst circumstances you can imagine, if you'd like to, for the sake of their love and the fact that Richard's willing to take care of this child, if you'd like to help us get her back to, well, she's never been to France, but we'd like to get her back in the arms of her lover and her fiancé. His parents were killed, her parents were killed, and their last wish of those two sets of parents was, that they were betrothed to each other first, and then they got engaged. In the Congo, they have a 5-year process for getting married. It's not just, walk up one day and get married. So they were first betrothed, then engaged, and they had gone through 3 years of the process when the terrible tragedies.
Sure. Mark, we got about a minute left here, and it's a fascinating story, and I'm so glad that you're able to share that and be able to have people help. If people do want to help out with this, when you said you need about $4,000, when do you need that by, and how can people help out with that one?
Well, they could help by just going to our website, www.kcfl.net, and hit on the donate tab, or just call me or call the station and you'll direct them to me. My number is 316-522-8866. And we can do it right off a credit card or whatever, and you can meet Doreen too if you want to. We are hoping to get her moved there before the baby is born, and so that Richard can be with the child when it's born. And since he's going to be the father to this child, I think that he deserves to be part of it. Plus, they've just been. It's been terrible that they've been separated this long, and that this is going on as it is.
Sure.
But it's really nobody's fault. I certainly don't blame the United Nations. They at least saved her life, and likewise with Richard. I don't blame the Red Cross. But he was actually refugeed first. So the fact that they should have been kept together, well, nobody knew that. There was different events in different villages. The point is, we now know what's going on. We should do the right thing, and these two should be put back together.
I love it. KCFL.net. It's Mark Gietzen with the Kansas Coalition for Life. 520 in the state of Kansas since the start of this just a few years back. What a phenomenal success story there. Mark, I appreciate what you guys do so much. God bless you guys. We'd love to talk again, and good luck with this one. I think it's going to be a huge story when she gets reunited back in France.
Oh, it will be. I'll guarantee you.
I love it.
Thank you, Andy. Have a wonderful day.
Mark, always a pleasure, my friend. Appreciate it. Let's go ahead and take a break. We'll open up lines, see what is open lines for the rest of the show. This is The Voice of Reason. Stay here.
You're listening to The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Bottom of the hour news coming up in just a second. Went a little long in that last segment. Thanks again to Mark Gietzen with the Kansas Coalition for Life. If you want to help them out, KCFL.net. It's open line to you for the last half hour. Your thoughts on this omnibus bill that we've been talking about, the tax rates, the spending. We'll get all your phone calls when we come back and get your thoughts on what's happening. This is The Voice of Reason. Stay tuned.
Keeping Republicans and Democrats accountable. This is The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Make it happen today on a Friday. It's been a wild ride today. We appreciate everybody hanging out with us today. It's been a fun one. Talking about the omnibus bill, talking about the Kansas Coalition for Life, talking about Orbiter movie, which we do have David Rosler back on the line. Not sure what happened with him last. It was kind of funny as we were talking about the... And I do want to open up lines, by the way, for everybody to get their thoughts on the omnibus bill here in just a minute. But I do want to talk with David. The last hour when we were talking, David, you were talking about how the fight has been against you to try and create this movie, and how people have been trying to try and block the exposure, block the donations and the funds for it to try and make this happen because of the message of it. And as you were doing so, we just heard a click and then you went dead. So I chalked that up to what that may be, but that was a little odd.
Well, it's easy to be paranoid, under the circumstances. It really is. Your first thought is to say, it's them again.
It's them again. That's right. That's right.
Well, I mean, and I have to tell you, I don't, when you say something about someone, they say that's defamation. It is their responsibility to prove it isn't true.
Sure.
So I'm not even going to say I'm going to qualify this with an opinion by saying I think it's all coming straight out of Twitter.
Well, there you go.
Everything that's going on with the country, everything that's going on, the stuff that's going on in Google, the stuff that's going on Facebook, I think the central organizing force
sure
is Twitter. And if you want to know how much they dislike us now, you should know something. You know the Project Veritas videos?
Oh, absolutely.
Well, they put in in an article, in an interview, that it was a tip that they had about a year ago. And we've gone back through our emails, and we more or less confirmed it with them. It wasn't a tip. It was our communications with them that got them to do it. We spelled the whole thing out. I drafted a letter about 4 pages long, and that was part of the communication. And then we never heard from them for a year, and suddenly they've got all this information, and, they're taking vows and stuff. But no, I mean, we've done a few things in the past similarly, so it isn't just Orbiter They just don't like us because we're effective for the cause. And so, I'm hard pressed to say this, but I'm not going to go there. There's information about this that is deeper and more earth shaking than you can imagine. We've got a book on it. When the circumstances are right, we'll probably release it then. But this thing is bigger than just Orbiter.
Sure. Well,
yeah. So when the phone went out, I figured 50-50.
There you go. Exactly. Yeah. Well, talk about the movie itself. Let's talk about Orbiter, orbitermovie.com if you want to get information on it. And we've seen the trailer. I watched the trailer before. It's fun. It's an interesting concept with the International Space Station. Some individuals living at the space station seeing World War III begin to occur on Earth, and the only thing that you can do is turn to faith in order to get through something like this. Is that about kind of the summary for this movie? I mean, it's a riveting story right there. I mean, it's kind of a scary thought.
Yeah, I think. I mean, there are a lot more details to it,
sure.
And it may not end the way you think it ends. I'm not really big on negative endings, leading the audience on to assume that the worst is going to happen and then deliver it to them. I'm not really a big fan of that. So the ending may not quite be what you think it is, but I guarantee that you'll be amazed at the concepts. We've got some scientific advisors. One of them, good friend of mine, Lonnie Bunis. He's got degrees in physics and astronomy. He ran a planetarium for a while, and we've been running through the science of this very, very carefully for months and months and months. And we have some shocking ways that something could be done, even if World War III had actually begun.
Mm-hmm.
There is actually a way to stop it.
Very
believe it or not.
Wow.
And yeah. So is that a spoiler? Maybe.
Well,
maybe it is, maybe it isn't.
But it's definitely something to think about. I want to get the information out there because I think it's a great project. I've supported it, and for all the listeners, I encourage them to do so as well. And for people that want to support something like this, how can they do so? How can they reach you guys? How can they get information on it? And if they want to donate to be able, because you're self-funding this entire thing since Hollywood's not doing so, how can they do so?
Right. Go to orbitermovie.com.
Mm-hmm.
And on the right of the poster, for support, there is a link where you can donate. Now, there's something else you need to know, and again, it goes back to these people. Are they interfering? Are they not? Donations. Many donations we're finding, people have donated, and they get a confirmation number. And then they say, oh, there's my confirmation number. I did my good deed for the day, and they don't scroll down to see if the donation took. And in many instances, they're not showing up. They're not showing up on the board, and they're not getting transferred into the account.
Sure.
Now, we don't know if people have hacked into the thing and set it up so that they give money, but the money is never taken out, but they believe that it has been because they get a confirmation number. I don't know. Go get funding. It's reported great by Forbes and CNN and all these places, so we're a little suspicious why donations aren't getting to us. So if you donate, scroll down, just takes a second, and see if your donation actually took. And if your name isn't under backers and comments, we ask you to do it again.
Sure.
And if there are any repeated donations, they're easy enough to identify, and we'll return the repeated donation. But we do need your help. It's a tough fight. We've been entirely shadow banned on Twitter. Facebook hardly gets any action, and you can imagine. You've seen the trailer, and oh, by the way, and if you're interested in that trailer, and you really want to see it at its best, download it, put it on a thumb drive, and put it in your HD TV.
There you go.
Well, I tell you, it's a whole different experience.
I'm sure it is.
And you're donating too, are you not?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I did, and I want to, so that way we can support something like this, because I think it is an important message, especially with some of the media and some of the mainstream messages that we get that aren't necessarily the best of values. This is kind of the counter to that, which I do support. Now, we got about a minute left before we got to move on here, but how much money do you need left in order to try and get this completed, and when do you expect this to come out?
Well, when it comes out, we expect to, that's going to depend on how we complete it. We're looking for $180,000, which sounds like a lot, but, you've got a big audience. If everyone listening to you, or even if a third of the people, even a fraction of the people, went to orbitermovie.com and put $10 in, we'd be funded in an hour.
Sure.
And then we would be moving on, and then the film would be finished in about 6 months, because it's highly complex with the visual effects and the 3D, the stereoscopic 3D and all of that, and probably within the theaters a couple of months after that. We're self-distributing, and the theaters, I've already worked it all out. They're good with that. We can meet their criteria. We have one of the Hollywood's highest power deliverable labs, which has agreed to take it on, and that means we can just slide into any theater chain in the country if they like the film. And one theater chain has already expressed in writing that they're very, very excited about it. So
very good.
This is not a dead project or a going nowhere project. So I urge everyone to get out there, help us beat the people on the other end, help us beat the opposition, the radical progressives who hate for the sake of hating and pour millions and millions of dollars into it to stop people like ourselves. Fight back, give us a hand, and we'll be grateful, and, we remember our friends and all that kind of thing.
Absolutely. David Rosler, orbitermovie.com. Check him out. David, I appreciate you coming back on the show, my friend. I don't know what happened in the first hour, but good luck to you with the project, and we'll chat again soon.
Great. Thanks for having me on.
Always a pleasure there. That's David Rosler with Orbiter Movie. Check him out, orbitermovie.com. We appreciate that very much. Let's go to Rick with the news.
Stay tuned. Stay tuned.
Good morning, sir.
I find it incredibly ironic that when a caller is on the line and a U.S. congressman also wants to speak to you because he's listening to your radio show, that the caller's phone suddenly dies.
That's weird. And I promise you, you can see me on the Facebook. You can see me on the video. There was no shenanigans of hitting anything. It just and it was done. And then at that same time, literally at that same time, I see a call come in and a text that says, Congressman Estes on the line for you. Okay.
Well, good morning, Andy. Good morning, everyone. French National Police say 2 people have been killed and about a dozen wounded in a shooting and hostage-taking in a supermarket in southern France. A spokesman with the National Police Service told the Associated Press that it's unclear whether there are still hostages inside the market in the town of Trèves. The spokesman said a police operation to apprehend the assailants is still underway. The spokesman was not authorized to be publicly named. The reason for the shooting and hostage-taking is unclear, as is the identity of the attacker. A jury was seated and opening statements got underway yesterday at federal court in Wichita for 3 western Kansas men accused of plotting to kill Somali immigrants. A federal prosecutor says the 3 militia members accused of plotting to bomb an apartment complex in Garden City that housed Somali immigrants were trying to murder as many Muslims as possible. In her opening statement yesterday, Risa Berkauer told jurors the men described the Somalis as cockroaches and wanted to set off bombs that would kill them. Patrick Stein, Gavin Wright, and Curtis Allen have all pleaded not guilty to several charges, including conspiracy to use a weapon of mass destruction. And a group is coordinating a weekend search for missing 5-year-old Lucas Hernandez of Wichita, last seen on the 17th of February. Volunteers wanting to help search tomorrow are asked to meet at the Dillons at 37th at Woodlawn at 9 o'clock tomorrow morning. Volunteers wanting to help with the search on Sunday asked to meet at the Dillons at Andover Road and Kellogg at 9 o'clock on Sunday morning.
Man.
That's the news.
That's the news. It's a heck of a week.
So Disney on Ice last night with your beautiful princess of a daughter, Isla.
She thoroughly enjoyed that one.
You know, and
hashtag Dad of the Year. What?
Yes,
Yeah, what can I
hands
say?
down. I got to see some of the Facebook footage and video. And yes, you are definitely in hero status in that girl's eyes. Don't screw it up.
Well, it was funny because it was a surprise. We didn't tell her where we were going.
Right.
At all.
Right.
I mean, she was walking up to the venue and saw all the other kids in outfits, and she got a little excited. Then she saw Mickey Mouse come out onto the ice, which she's like, all right, that's cool. And then the princesses came out, and
look out.
She didn't, like I said, you know, when you go through, as a kid, you go through emotion overload, don't know how to process it.
You know, when you were describing that to me this morning before we went on the air at 6 o'clock, I mean, I could totally relate. Yeah, I mean, she got flooded with emotions, but she didn't know which one to let out.
Oh, yeah, the eyes got bug-eyed, and she covered her mouth open, and she starts getting all teary-eyed, freaking out because Belle from Beauty and the Beast came out, and then all the princesses, and every single princess came out. That's Cinderella. That's Jasmine. That's yeah, it was over from there. And then, of course, the entire last half of it was Frozen. And then, of course, I've never heard a concert was singing Let It Go before. I've never heard that. And all the kids in the entire venue singing Let It Go.
Really?
Oh, my. It was like I was just waiting for the mosh pit to break out somewhere.
Were people
with the
holding
concert.
up lighters? And
well, not lighters. They actually had like the little light up Disney like snowflake things that they were using.
Go figure.
There you go. It was a concert and a half for Frozen.
Okay, so weekend plans, it's going to be 80 degrees today.
Making it happen.
And then meteorologist Frank Waugh from Cake TV says a cold front coming in, so it'll be significantly cooler tomorrow with highs only in the 70s, highs on Sunday only in the 60s. What are your weekend plans, pray tell?
Nothing.
Nothing?
Nothing at all.
No yard work?
Not yet.
Dude, it's spring all over the world in South Central Kansas.
It is spring, but it is not that time yet. I'm ready, but it's not that time yet.
I couldn't even sleep last night because I could hear the wheat crop growing from last weekend's rains.
I love it. Yeah, there it is. Appreciate it. Have a great weekend, sir.
Have a good weekend yourself.
Break with the news.
And that's the news.
Got to take a break. Wrapping up the show. We'll get your thoughts when we come back. This is The Voice of Reason. Stay here.
The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier on the Big Talker, KQAM.
Wrapping up the show today. Welcome back into The Voice of Reason. Appreciate everybody hanging out. What a show it's been today. It's been a fun one. It's been an interesting one. I know a lot of people still really frustrated with the omnibus bill. Totally get it. Totally understand. Look, if you disagree with me on my take on this, that's fine. And I'm glad people disagree with me on this because we want to have the dialogue. I want us to be able to get something done productively in the long term. And I think the long-term goal is way more important than the short-term 6-month omnibus that really is no different than what we've seen over the last few years. Is it frustrating? Absolutely. But we can move forward in a positive direction from here on out. Got some Facebook messages that I will respond to in just a bit, and we'll continue to touch on that in a little bit. But this portion of The Voice Reason, as it always is on a Friday, brought to you by the Inman Harvest Cafe. After getting all worked up about taxes and spending, it's time to actually, we've kind of worked up an appetite this morning, haven't we? And it's time to check in. Katie with the Inman Harvest Cafe on Fried Chicken Friday. I can smell the chicken from here, Katie.
That's a trick. I don't know. You got some good
I can
olfactory
sense it.
senses there.
I can sense it. I can feel it. It's coming our way. I can't wait. It's Fried Chicken Friday with the big buffet from 11 to 1, the major buffet from 5 to 8 o'clock tonight. We got to remind everybody, because we work up an appetite throughout the week, and especially today, how can people go, and what kind of slate do we have today for Fried Chicken Friday?
Oh.
There you are.
Are you there?
There we go. I got you.
I'm sorry. I have call waiting, and somebody's trying to beep in, and so it's going to cut out again. I know.
Well, see, they're already setting their order for the day. They're excited.
They're really excited.
They are.
Oh, there they go. They want to make reservations, I'm sure.
That's right.
Okay, so today we've got our fried chicken, which is a hand-breaded fried chicken that we make our own coder and everything. He does his own marinade, too, so he kind of soaks the chicken for a while in his marinade, and then he breads it up. And then we're going to have barbecued meatballs today. We're going to have a scalloped potatoes with tuna in it. That's always really popular. That's got cheese because we really feel strongly about cheese here. We've got all different kinds of cheese. We like to mix it up.
Exactly. I mean, that's kind of a necessity of life.
It really is. And then besides that, okay. In the evening from 5 to 8, we have our famous roast beef out there. So that's slow roasting in the oven right now, and it's starting to. I can really smell it. And like normally when I'm in it for a long time, I can't smell it anymore. But I just got a nice strong whiff of it. So it's almost done. It's really good.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
Now, along with that, you have not just the fried chicken, but you have the barbecue meatballs that you mentioned earlier, which sound delicious as well. And can you smell those? Are those cooking nice today?
I can't smell them yet because they just went into the oven not that long ago. So those aren't smelling it up yet, but they will soon. And then we'll put the barbecue sauce on it and put it back in the oven, and then it kind of caramelizes that sauce, and that's a really good smell.
That's what I'm talking about.
And then we're also working on another pie, so that's a smell. There's lots of smells in here today.
There's lots of smells. You're right. And with the pies, I mean, you do get your free slice of pie from the 5 to 8 o'clock buffet tonight. Right. Give us that list again of what pies you're going to have.
Pies today are coconut cream, chocolate cream, rhubarb, pumpkin, custard, cherry, pecan, banana split. He's got a strawberry chocolate back there, and then I don't know what else, but those are the ones that are done now, and we'll probably have more this afternoon.
We'll see. It's just going to happen throughout the day, and it's going to be a surprise if there is anything else out there. So you kind of need to go up and see what kind of surprise there's going to be. We
love surprises.
We love surprises. It's what it's all about.
Except when it's an omnibus bill.
Well, then there's that.
If it's a 3,000-page omnibus bill, we don't like surprises.
Well, come on. Then you only get a day to read it. I mean, that's what you need, right? Yeah.
That's all kinds of ridiculous.
That's all kinds of ridiculous. It's the Inman Harvest Cafe, 112 South Main Street. It's Fried Chicken Friday, just north of Hutchinson, 620-585-6925. Katie, you guys have fun today, and we'll talk to you again next Friday.
All right, thanks, Andy. We'll talk to you later.
Always a pleasure. Appreciate it very much. That's the Inman Harvest Cafe, proud sponsors here on The Voice of Reason. Wrapping up the show today, I know that we've had a lot of emotion, a lot of thought go into this, and let's keep our heads held high, especially with the omnibus bill. I get it. It's been a frustrating process. It will get better. I promise you that. It is a process, though. It's going to take some time. We can't fix it just like that. Now is the opportunity that we actually have to make this better. Keep your heads high. And let's continue this conversation when we come back on Monday. Have a great weekend. Enjoy the weekend. Take your mind off it. Go watch some basketball or something. And we'll kick it into high gear Monday morning. As always, this is your show. It's time to speak up, speak out, speak loud, speak proud, speak the truth. And always speak some reason, baby. This is The Voice of Reason. Have a great weekend.